ceremony, let us welcome Mr. Muhammad Moshe bin Muhammad Kashfi to lead the dua recitation. Please welcome Mr. Moshe.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. O Allah, the Lord who rules over the heavens and earth, we express our gratitude to you for your permission and abundance of grace, so we can gather and make the Water Sector Forum at IGEM 2023 a success. O Allah, we seek your guidance in every matter. Bless our plans and efforts to advance our nation. Ya Allah, Ya Fattah, Ya Alim, guide our leaders who bear the trust and responsibility in governing our nation with the continuous light of your guidance. Lead all of us towards the straight and righteous path that lead us to unity, sustainability, and prosperity. O Allah, grant us wisdom and guidance, strength and capability in carrying out our efforts and strategies to achieve the goal of Malaysia Madani. Ya Allah, Ya Mu'min, Ya Muhaymin, we seek safety and well-being for ourselves, our leaders, and our nation from all threats and disasters. Strengthen our determination, patience, and reliance on you in shouldering the responsibility of advancing our country and religion, so that they may be honored and respected. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Amin, 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 Ya Rabbal Alamin. Thank you, Mr. Moshe, for leading the dua recitation. We would appreciate if the Ambassador of the Chengdu and all distinguished guests to remain on their seats for the session of the event. And we have, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Secretary General of Ministry of Natural Resources, Environment and Climate Change, Ambassador Chengdu Kim, to deliver the opening remarks. Representing the Minister of Natural Resources, Environment and Climate Change, Yang Berusaha Nazmi bin Ahmad, please welcome.
Terima kasih rakan saya daripada SPAN yang berbahagia, datuk-datuk, tuan-tuan, rakan-rakan daripada semua sektor air yang tak jemu-jemu memberi sokongan kepada kita. Boleh kita beri satu tepukan yang buruk? First, I would like to convey the apology from my minister. It currently is officiating an event on carbon market exchange somewhere, and I have gotten permission from him to stay throughout this event today to show the support to your event. Salam sejahtera, salam Malaysia sepadan. A very good afternoon to all distinguished guests at Forum on Water for Growth, Ensuring Sustainability and Resilience. First and foremost, I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone for your presence on this auspicious occasion. It is an honor to me to deliver the opening remarks at this forum. This forum serves as a platform to facilitate positive interaction among stakeholders, policymakers, implementers, NGOs, industry players, as well as consumers. First, I must congratulate the Ministry, SPAN, PAB, IWK for their commitment in making today's event a success. Ladies and gentlemen, the triple plenary crisis that the world is facing, climate change, biodiversity loss, and population growth requires us to ensure the future proofing of our precious resources. During the Ministry Madani Economics Narrative Dialogues that we had on the 13th of September, I stressed that the combined impact of the triple planetary crisis will jeopardize our people, leading to increased extreme weather events and disasters, affecting our food security and water security, and leading to the increase of the incidence of poverty. I have outlined several actions that the ministries will take to ensure the implementation of the Madani economy. This includes increasing the capacity of renewable and efficient energy through current efforts and new initiatives, rolling out the energy transition initiative, adopting the whole of nation approach through the development of an inclusive climate change policy, encouraging low carbon initiative, and developing the green economy. To further support the Madani economy, the ministry will increase efforts towards the conservation and preservation of our biodiversity, forestry, enhancing the mineral industry contribution to the economy, tackling pollution, and increasing access to safe water supply and adequate sanitation. We will also focus on better management of water resources and our resilience against disasters and the impacts of climate change and floods. At the UN 2022 Water Conference in March this year, we asserted that the global climate crisis is also a water crisis. Malaysia acknowledged that the world population is facing a significant decline in the water quality and quantity of fresh water, resulting in harmful effects of human health and economic activity. The global population is experiencing water scarcity, inadequate provision of sanitation, as well as more intense and frequent disasters, extreme weather events, and accelerated melting of glaciers. I am glad to share that water management will be one of the main agenda to be deliberated at COP28 in Dubai in coming November. Malaysia has called for a framework for resilience, and it must start with water, where climate, environment, and development converge. This call for resilience is aligned with Malaysia's Madani economy, where we must shift the approach that we use our strategies, where climate and disaster risk and economic growth have to be blended together. We aim to achieve 97% of water and sewer coverage for Malaysia and Labuan. Let me re-emphasize action for water sector which I shared during the budget dialogue. Number one, ensuring the rakyat access to water supply, especially for Kelantan, Sabah, and Labuan. We aim to reduce NRW by 30%. I think it's not by, to 31% by 2025, and adopt a circular economy for wastewater recycling. Number two, strengthening the financial sustainability of water and sewage sector through the introduction of ICPT for the first time and tariff setting mechanism. And just to add, we plan to table the tariff setting mechanism again in cabinet somewhere in October. And all of you, we need to support all of you for a slight increase of water tariff that will not burden us at all. Third, better management of water resources through integrated river basin management to ensure the conservation of environment and reduce the risk of flooding. And lastly, to increase resilience and preparedness for 2.5 million of our population against floods, and ensuring that the high-risk dams are strengthened. This strategic direction will enable the country to achieve the SDG by 2030, aligned with the Madani economy principle, and successfully transform the water sector by 2040. Ultimately, what we want to see is reliable, sufficient and quality water supply, cleaner rivers, efficient flood management, and better water storage management. Ladies and gentlemen, the outlook of water sector in Malaysia is both challenging and exciting. While water demand is expected to increase with greater competition among water-intense sector as well as domestic needs, Malaysia is blessed with a high amount of annual rainfall of about 3,000 millimeters a year. We need efficient and innovative infrastructure that can meet this demand, and most importantly, to ensure that we can tap into these resources for continuous water supply throughout the year. In facing current issues and future challenges, the government has introduced the National Water Sector Transformation Program 2040, known as the Asli 2040, to transform the water sector into a dynamic and vibrant economic sector that can contribute significantly to the national GDP, provide good quality, affordable water supply to all Malaysians, create new job opportunities, and facilitate the resilient development of science, technology, and innovations, as well as research, development, innovation, and commercialization (RD&C). The Asli 2040 focus on 8 sub-sectors and are considered important and strategic to expedite the implementation of Asli, including alternative water financing to accommodate increasing demand from the domestic, industrial, and agricultural sector, adaptation of climate change, strengthening the integration of water and water-related data, and highlighting the integration and adoption of IR 4.0 based advanced technologies in water resources management. As a way forward, governance at all levels, at federal, states, and local government will be strengthened toward integrated water management, in addition to strengthening existing laws to create a conducive environment for private investment. In line with that, the government has targeted to amend the Water Services Industry Act 655 and its regulations in order to strengthen fund functions and roles. And this bill will be tabled in Parliament in coming session that starts next Monday. The efforts through the Asli 2040 are not only to promote water and gas economics opportunity, but also to ensure the safety and sustainability of water for the people and future generations. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, I believe that our effort to ensure the success of water management in Malaysia need to strike a balance between access to water as a necessity and ensuring the financial and operational sustainability of the water operators. We need to reach a point of equilibrium that can guarantee the interests of all parties are safeguarded. This forum serves as a great platform to collect grassroots grievances, concerns, and ideas to mitigate current problems and achieve effective and efficient water management in Malaysia. With that note, I would like to begin our forum session now. I look forward in the interesting elaborations from the panelists, and I wish all of you a fruitful and productive deliberations. I am honored to announce the Water Forum for utilizing the water footprint to ensure stability and resilience is officially open. Thank you very much.
Doctor, we thank you for the warm welcome remark. Terima kasih, Kapunkan. I believe it's not too late for us to congratulate Dr. Ching for being appointed as the Secretary General for NRECC. Congratulations, Dr. Ladies and gentlemen, the future is still our water be clear. Together, we'll have nothing to fear. Without further ado, now we will continue with our first presenter with his topic, Understanding Water Footprint and its Relevance, by Professor Dr. Zulkifli Yusof, Chair of the Virtual Water and Water Footprint of the Water Sector Transformation WST 2040. Please welcome Professor Dr. Zulkifli. With some time, allow me to share the background of the presenter, Professor Zulkifli, the Senior Professor in Environmental Hydrology at University Technology Malaysia. He obtained his bachelor and master degree from UPM in Environmental Science and PhD in Environmental Hydrology from University of Manchester in 1996. His research interests include water management, climate change impact, and water resources, non-point source pollution, integrated river basin management. As recognition to his achievement, he was conferred Fellow of Malaysia Academy of Science in April 2012 and the recipient of Malaysia Outstanding Water Award for Research in 2019. Professor Zulkifli was also elected to lead the task force on the virtual water and water footprint in relation to the water sector transformation 2040, WST 2040. Please welcome Prof.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam Malaysia Madani. Yang berbahagia Dr. Ching to Kim, the newly appointed Secretary General for NRECC Congratulations. Datuk dan Datin, Tuan-Tuan Puan sekalian. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer for inviting me to this forum. The title given to me is Understanding Water Footprint and its Relevance. Slide, please. Next. Next. Can I go through the slide one? Good. Okay, thank you. This is the outline of my presentation, introduction, looking at the global challenges, looking at the pattern of water use consumption, define what is water footprint, a bit on the water sector transformation 2040. Some example of local studies and a bit on virtual water as opposed to water footprint. And the way forward, looking at opportunities and challenges. And also highlight the recent requirement on water footprint in the ESG, as well as the roadmap and funding. As introduction, in 2021, the water features set to join like tools and oil and trade on Wall Street for the first time. So basically, water contract type, what price of water are set on Wall Street for the first time ever. This was done by Chicago Mercantile Exchange with values of 1.1 billion. This is the first time that water is actually listed in the stock exchange. So this is the trend, the very, very recent trend that possibly will happen in other countries. Normally when it happened in the US, after 15 or 10 years, that will also happen here locally. We look at the water consumption. If you look at the pattern of water consumption for agriculture, domestic and industry, we observe that actually the pattern is increasing remarkably. But what is more important is that global compared consumption is actually doing a lot of loss. In fact, for agriculture, about 30% of the water withdrawn is actually lost before reaching the farm. In Malaysia, maybe little higher compared to 30% global data. Looking at the consumption for domestic, also increased, but the losses is even more. I managed to calculate how much losses is almost 90%. So maybe our standard is much better compared to global standard. We are not that high in terms of losses. Maybe the non-revenue water is about 55% at least. Some state can go lower than that, close to 20. Of course, some state registered more than 50, but even close to 60% and on the value end. So a lot of loss. Similar to industry, also close to 50% loss from source to the point consumption. When we talk about water footprint, I think we have to relate that with behavior. consumption. The way we compare this is by looking at the per capita water use. Compare certain data. Of course, the US is always champion in everything. They use the most water per capita daily. Liter per person per day, 378. Canada 151. But looking at the good example, Singapore 150, Hong Kong 130. The EU countries, Belgium is only 107 liter per person per day. So basically, it varies between countries. Of course, that is very much related to behavior, awareness, and so on. A simple example, we're looking at our daily activities, such as toilet flushing, can vary from 7 to 37 liters per day. So if you use double flushing, maybe better, but sometimes it's not so effective. We have to, instead of flushing once, we have to flush twice only this time. The final volume is more. If you use tub building, so basically the water can be very high compared to conservative. Shower, 10 minutes. Typical shower, 210, 220. If you are conservative, saving technology, 110. 3 minutes, as suggested by our previous PSU. 66 liter, typical device, water saving 33. Even toothbrushing can make a lot of difference, ranging from 0.5 if you use cup to 9 if you let the water flows. So that's basically some behavior that actually influence the water consumption on a daily basis. Because of this very important issue, the BPU, especially the Secretary of Science this year, has come up with this water sector transformation 2040. This is the national agenda to transform the water sector into a dynamic and vibrant economic sector that can contribute significantly to the national gross domestic product and provide good quality, affordable water to the rakyat, as well as create new job opportunities and facilitating resilient development of science, technology, innovation, and RTIC in the sector. Basically, we focus on two objectives. First is water security and sustainability, talking about sustainability, conservation, and the other one is water as an economic opportunity. So two aspects, one on the conservation aspect, the one generating economic opportunity. And water footprint is one of the eight studies that has been identified. That's one is SEPA, on the public awareness and communication, smart technologies, data integration, climate change adaptation, new economy sector, financing mechanism. This is the one that our KSU evolved in the past. Water food access. So basically, water footprint is one of the titles of one of the topics that was selected. Why this is selected? Because we feel like it is the new thing that may have big impact, as possibly as important as when we talk about carbon footprint. Now look small, and people are trying to understand. If you look at the pattern trend on carbon footprint in the past, it started very modest and finally become very big and become a tool for sustainable business and so on. What is water footprint? Water footprint is the total fresh water used by a person, community, company, or country to produce the goods and services consumed. To produce the goods that the person needs, the community needs, or the country needs, or services that needed by the entity. So these include all economic activities of companies and individuals, the management of public, that include agriculture, livestock, maintenance of public and private infrastructure, manufacture of product and food. So water footprint can also apply to personal water footprint, our daily water use. call it blue water footprint. Second one is green water footprint. The other one is grey water footprint. Blue water footprint is the water consumed from surface water. They come from rivers, from lake, or from groundwater. Groundwater is not surface water, but actually whatever resource of water that is used for consumption. Yeah. Second component is green water footprint. This is basically the rainwater, and that does not contribute to runoff. And so normally the green water is the rainwater that actually infiltrates to the soil as soil moisture taken by the plant and evaporated back to the atmosphere. Water required by the plant actually released back to the atmosphere through evapotranspiration process. The third one, grey water footprint, that is water needed to dilute pollutant down to safe concentration. Any process possibly can cause water pollution, maybe in the sense of increase in DOD level. So let's say we want to get +2 water, certain level of DOD. So basically, how much water is needed to dilute the water so that it serves certain purpose or come back to the original level. So basically, it is translated to volume of water needed to dilute the pollution. So, to make it simple, we can combine various items. We want to compare how much is the water footprint for a cup of coffee. That is 34 liters. Coffee is more, 140. A banana, we need 159 liters per banana. Cotton shirt, 2,498. If we eat 1 kilometer of beef, basically 1 kilometer of beef needs 15,400 liters of water. So depending on the product. So those who eat vegetarian, use less water compared to those who eat a lot of meat. So next I would like to give some example on water footprint study. So basically, the evolution of water footprint study started as early as 1990s, Islands talk about the concept of virtual water in agriculture. Started this article in 1998. And then Hoekstra, basically is the fathers of this water footprint, the late Hoekstra, developed a concept based on the virtual water. A lot of paper published by Hoekstra and basically around in the early 2000. And then in mid 2000, the concept of life cycle assessment. This is still of Dr. Vijaya, as well as I forgot to introduce my team in water study. Rosa Salehan, Dr. Salehan, as well as Ms. Norhana, the one that actually supported our study. So back to this, in 2014, basically the ISO 14046 was launched for reporting water footprint assessment using LCA. Water accounting and vulnerability evaluation was used when assessing the potential impact of fresh water. And between 2016 to 2020, there are many studies already reported in academic publication. And LCA is also using two concepts. One is water footprint, the other one is based on LCA, life cycle analysis. Just because one of the requirements of this, my talk this afternoon is to explain how we calculate the water footprint. One of the products that we assess is on crude palm oil production. We choose this because our palm is basically has very big export value. At the time was 65 billion, maybe now more. The process stages can be divided into nursery stage, young trees, mature trees, and crude palm oil production at the mill. And the functional unit is the volume of water. This is important to understand the basic concept. The unit is meter cube volume of water needed to produce 1 ton of crude palm oil. How much water needed? Unit meter cube to produce 1 ton of CPO. Then we have to calculate how much for green water, how much for grey water, and how much for blue water. So basically, we have to evaluate at 4 different stages, looking at various data. Among the data is basically we need the land area, of course, because we want to estimate the yield, and then type and amount of fertilizer, and then use energy, the diesel consumption, electricity consumption. Crop coefficient is important in order to estimate the green water. And crop potential, crop coefficient is basically evaluate the evapotranspiration, rainfall, soil series, that is at the plantation, the nursery stages. And then at the milling stage, we need to know water for processing, each process. And then the steam input, diesel consumption, electricity consumption, palm oil mill effluent, that is related to green water. And finally, if we want to proceed to virtual water, we need to know how much actually CPO is exported, and is there any other CPO we import. So that is some of the data required in order to estimate the water footprint for crude palm oil. I think I don't need to explain the detail. I think it's sufficient to see what are the data requirement to calculate the water footprint. The final unit is meter cube of water required to produce 1 ton CPO. Sorry, they are in fact basic, because I was told that some really interested to know the basic of the footprint. As for the paddy, quite similar to the palm, we have different stages. So basically, 3 stages from the vegetative, production and harvest. So in paddy, we have to go to this stage, in fact, calculate by days, stage 1 to stage 4, and various data also required as for farm. That includes the irrigation system, irrigation water requirement, rainfall, type and amount of fertilizer, type and amount of pesticide, diesel consumption, source of water for irrigation, crop coefficient, evapotranspiration. At the milling stage, water for processing, meter cube per ton, diesel consumption, electricity consumption, amount of wastewater, and finally, if we want to virtual water similar, how much we export and how much we import. This is very crucial, I think, since we have paddy and grass is a very important issue now. In order to increase the efficiency, it's good to have data on water footprint for paddy production. This is more detail on the various stages of paddy plantation, paddy planting. The summary for paddy, various source of data normally collect from Department of Agriculture, secondary literature, and then calculate the water footprint for each phase, vegetative, productive, and harvesting. And then the calculation basically involves paddy cleaning at the mill, paddy cleaning, whitening, water polishers, that end colors, sorter. Kurang pandai itu. We also quantify the water requirement, water footprint for rubber tulip. At that time, our study was during the COVID-19. The export of rubber tulip is so huge. So basically, at the time, the potential for rubber tulip industry is very good. So we include that in one of the case studies. Basically, the processes include formal cleanings, coagulant dipping, latex dipping, bleaching and bleeding, drying, vulcanization, cooling, chlorination and post-bleaching, stripping, inspection, and finally production. So various data, such as amount of direct water use, diesel consumption, electricity consumption, amount of wastewater, dispenser boxes, synthetic rubber, type and amount of chemical, water bills, electric bills, production use, as also in the mill, personal use. So this is some of the result. The result. If you look at the all part, CPO, for example, the result tend to vary. I think this is understandable because it depends on the practices, it depends on the rainfall, it depends on the various technology that we use in processing CPO from the nursery. So I think Dr. Vijaya, it seems that Dr. Vijaya values is quite high, maybe compared to our estimate. Of course, that depends on data. Dr. Vijaya's study is actually very detailed. Compared from various sides. We have very short periods, so basically we tend to simplify the approach. But there is another study in Thailand, quite comparable to Indonesia, but the global value by another study is 4,900, and Indonesia by Herda is in fact the lowest. So out of that, green water footprint is the highest for CPO production, 91%, followed by grey water, while the blue water is only 1%, because basically the blue water is required at nursery level. Paddy also we compare with other studies. The values that we got is 2340 meter cube per ton of paddy. The values is ranging from 2005 to 3,483. For paddy, the highest proportion is blue water. Blue water is from irrigation. Green water is from rainfall. 3% is green water because when fertilizer is applied, there will be pollution, mostly in terms of ammonia or phosphate. Let's say it exceeds certain pH, standard 2A, 0.3, then what is the volume of water required to dilute the ammonium nitrogen to acceptable limit. In fact, we try also to calculate the water footprint for tourism, because this is another industry that is very important to our country. So for tourism, of course, by various activities, so there is activities shopping, dining, accommodation, entertainment, and so on. That is the activities. Okay, that is basically the introduction. What is water footprint, how to calculate, and what is the values for certain products. Moving from water footprint to virtual water, this is basically the amount of water that is embedded in the product and involve export and import. So the map here basically showing the water stress level globally. The red or dark red indicate countries that have very severe water stress, more than 80% water consumption compared to the available water. Available water can be river water or groundwater. So 80% of that available water, the runoff, is used for various purposes, either for irrigation or for domestic, for industry. Some countries actually they have very catastrophic level. 80% is catastrophic. So Malaysia is considered low, the light green. So virtual water is specifically hidden for indirect water that is embedded in the production and trade off goods and services. This is basically the very early concept introduced by Allen in 1998. So I think it's good to see further what is the importance of having this data information. This is actually the global map of water, virtual water trade. The green indicate net import, and the red indicate exporter. If you look, Malaysia is green, So basically, Malaysia is a net importer of virtual water. We import a lot of beef. We import a lot of dairy that actually needs a lot of water. So that's why we actually net importer of virtual water. And we can also map the movement of water from one country to another country. More interestingly, this is one interesting analysis done by OKI in 2021. Basically, this indicates that they try to relate between the import and export value of virtual water and the correlation with the available resources immediately per person per year and gross domestic product. Basically, in this graph, countries like India, they import a lot of virtual water, and the GDP is quite high. The biggest exporter is Uruguay, and at the same time, they have very high renewable water, more than 10,000 metric feet per person per year. So basically, this indicates that if we can use the available water resources in order to be used for agriculture production and export that product, we can actually increase the GDP. So basically, to a certain extent, the GDP is also dependent on the amount or the availability of water. So countries like Libya, UAE, Kuwait is actually fall under catastrophic class category in terms of water stress. But by importing agriculture or food products from other countries, they can solve the water requirement in their countries. But countries like Burundi, they have quite high available water, but apparently they don't really make use of the resources. So maybe the strategy is for Burundi to produce more food that need a lot of water. By doing that, we can have countries like Libya, UAE, Kuwait to get additional water in terms of food product as virtual water, and at the same time, Burundi can increase the GDP. So basically, if we can transfer the water to other countries through virtual water in food or agricultural product, the countries can actually increase the GDP. At the same time, redistribute the availability of water to other countries that actually have serious water stress. That is the concept that might be applied in the future. How the countries that contribute to virtual water to other countries will be paid, that is different mechanism. But there is opportunity to see how other countries that rich with natural resources, water, can help countries with scarce water resources, and therefore make the water balance that include virtual water in that water scarce country better. This is another example in China. They assess this in terms of water embedded in electricity. So basically, they can map out which part of the country, which part of the country need more water in terms of virtual water by trading the energy. Looking forward, we have learned about water footprint, the concept, some virtual water, why it is important. So that's why I put it the way forward. Actually, the word water footprint is more or less the buzzword now. It's already incorporated in many policy papers. For example, in India mandates corporate water footprint reporting. Wajib untuk corporate untuk reporting the water footprint. Kemudian is also in the ESG, environment, social, and governance. In fact, mentioned many times, for example, water neutrality, the next frontier in ESG. What is water footprinting, and why should it be an ESG priority? Ini pada the article on this. The other one is making wave in ESG, investigating the critical importance of water security for business sustainability. So that is basically some of the articles, some policy that already incorporate water footprint in business ataupun sustainable management of resources. Ini some of the initiative related to water footprint for various countries. Almost dah banyak the initiative. China, they have this free water footprint permit and water footprint in food. In fact, Bangladesh pun ada, India pun ada. Malaysia basically have water footprint element di daftar negara dah masuk. Dan juga dalam dia punya nawak atau water balance, dia masukkan element of water footprint. In Turkey, they really make water footprint as important element dalam dia punya business big company macam Yasar company. So basically a lot of initiative already. Okay, water footprint in ESG, environmental, social and governance. There are 9 attributes of ESG core, and water footprint is already one of the attributes. Besides greenhouse gas, waste management, employee well-being and safety, gender diversity, energy footprint, and so on. So basically, water footprint is already one of the attributes in ESG. So water is the direct and indirect driver of many ESG metrics, making it extremely important to overall score. So basically, possibly this is new to us, but globally, the policymakers, the academic and all that, they already started doing this, and I believe shortly this will actually be felt by our industry company to incorporate water footprint in their ESG. In fact, some companies like Sumber already met us and discussed on the possibility of conducting water footprint study for Perubahan, because they know this is already new requirement in order to export Perubahan to Europe. They need that one water footprint. Okay. So basically, besides ESG requirement, water footprint can basically increase effectiveness of water consumption, reduce water-related impact at various stages of product, optimize water use and management, also managing water-related risks, including drought, climate change, and so on. And at the end, essentially promote green product. So one of the criteria is actually how efficient the company use the water. This is possibly the trend in the future, like RSPO certification, but maybe water footprint will be one of the elements to be included in certification of certain product. Kita bincang banyak tentang padi, siapa nak tanam padi, Kedah dan Malang, dia kata dia negara terpaksa miskin sebab tanam padi. Then you have to find alternative where to plant. So basically, maybe this is one of the examples that we can apply water footprint for paddy. Of course, need area that have high rainfall, and then we can calculate what is the requirement for paddy per ton. Then we can possibly work on that basis to either compensate or incentive and so on to reduce the tension. Another opportunities is, as I mentioned, increase water use efficiency, facilitate benchmarking and auditing. Eco-labeling is also possible. One day, if you want to buy banana, at least you know how much water is actually needed to produce one banana. Global market access, as I mentioned, Menteri would like to export CPO to Europe, Netherlands. Some of the buyers there already mentioned that they need to have water footprint measurement, sustainable consumption, virtual water trading, and also finally global water use optimization, such as the case of Libya, importing foods from other countries that have rich water resources. In Malaysia, water footprint has been mentioned in the National Sustainable Consumption and Production Blueprint 2016-2030, especially in the food and beverage. I mentioned that water footprint has to be calculated for food and beverage. Well, this is a good start, at least there is some statement on water footprint. And our studies indicate that we can always incorporate water footprint requirement in many other acts or amendments. Challenges, in order to do that, of course, we need to increase the awareness, how important is water footprint in the future. Basically, one of the spirit of having good water footprint is to encourage new technology. Companies to invest in new technology to make them more efficient. But one of the hindrance is low tariff. When the tariff is low, the company always feel that it is better to use treated water compared to investing in new technology, because it's cheaper to use the existing water compared to investing in new technology. Lack of relevant policy, we have to strengthen that. Poor regulatory compliance, resources is very limited in terms of talents, financial, R&D facilities, supply chain capacity. We have to really track the supply chain. No dedicated institution and driver. I think the game now is quite scattered. Professor Nora is doing some work with his PhD student. But other than that, Dr. Wijaya, I just thought is that it's difficult to find any successor to do this field. And of course, data accessibility. We need to share data. We need data from various agencies in order to calculate the water footprint. In fact, in the WSP 2040, we already come up with the roadmap. I summarize the roadmap. So the first stage is to increase, actually they say to increase water supply and strengthen demand management. And water footprint is actually one of the instruments in demand management. We have to include that in national water resource policy. I think it's already included. The idea has started now, and in the now study they mentioned also on. They have some quantification on water footprint, even though it's not so detailed. Syria basically already have some instrument certified, or we need to do some water auditing. Of course, we need a better policy to really implement water footprint in the future. If we compare our capability, capability in terms of academic article, compared to the country, the biggest player is only China. China is the biggest player. Malaysia is the smallest dot at the bottom. So basically, of course, we are a small country, but at least we have some data related to water footprint. But in order to be a good player, we have to strengthen the capability. And we're looking at the institution, the biggest player in terms of number of paper and citation, University of 20 in Netherlands. We are not yet in the bank. As I mentioned, that maybe what is happening now, water footprint would be following more or less similar path. Okay, look at as carbon credit. So basically, it will evolve towards that direction. So we have to be ready in the necessary step. This is the detailed roadmap yang prepared by ASN, termasuklah kat situ ada implementing water footprint on river basin boundary, water footprint reporting, water footprint center. At least we have center to conduct this research. We have to enhance the policy, identify financial reward or incentive in the beginning, so that company can start doing the water footprint calculation. Competency and certification program. We have to train the company, industry, maybe do labeling. And And I think another important thing is we have to appoint water manager. Maybe the energy manager can also act as water manager at industry level. This is the more detail again you have to. You can always refer this to the ASM report in the virtual water. As conclusion, water footprint is a new global initiative. We have to keep track, we have to follow the trend. It is actually a way for improving the water use efficiency. We believe that water footprint will soon make an impact on market accessibility. And the WSP 2040 is Greentech roadmap. I think the Kementerian possibly can use that roadmap to implement water footprint. And of course, finally, we need to increase our expertise by doing a lot of capacity building program. With that, I would like to thank and for that kick longer than time my
Thank you, Professor, for the insightful topic on water footprint. At least we learned about the colors of water footprint, blue, green, and grey water footprint. For you mentioned there's a fact about 1 cotton t-shirt or 1,300 days of drinking water you choose. It is some same amount of the water for both, actually. Is there any question from the floor for Professor? Orang Melayu kata diam dan setuju tak apa. Okay. Thank you, Professor, for the presentation. We'll move forward to the presentation 2. We're going to have, we shall continue with the second presentation by Dr. Vijaya Subramaniam from Climate Change and Biodiversity Unit, Biology and Sustainability Research Division, Malaysian Palm Oil Board, MPOB, with her topic on water footprint for the selected products along the oil palm supply chain. Please welcome Dr. Vijaya Subramaniam. Tell a bit about Dr. Vijaya. Vijaya Subramaniam is currently attached to Biology and Sustainable Research Division of MPOB. She holds the post of Special Research Officer and is the head of Sustainability, Climate Change and AMP Biodiversity Unit, and has been involved in R&D for the oil palm industry for over 20 years. Her areas of expertise are in the disciplines of life cycle assessment for palm oil and the oil palm industry, water footprint, carbon footprint, sustainability and climate change, recovery of residual oil, waste and loss program, indirect land use change, ILUC, social LCD, and SDGs. Please welcome.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Very good evening. I think this is a very challenging topic and a challenging session as well, right? It's right at the end, but it's a very important topic. Now, I'd like to thank Dr. Zoe, who has actually, I think, covered everything, all the basics about water footprint. So when I come to that, I will just actually go faster. So today, I'm going to present about the water footprint for selected products from the oil palm supply chain. I think earlier, Prof actually cited some of our study in 2014, but what I'm going to present here are later studies after the Hofstra method, studies which actually looked into at the impact level of water footprint. Because when we talk about water footprint, it's not just water consumption, but it's actually the impact. And so we have later publications, 2017, 2020, that may differ the results from what has been presented. So very brief introduction to the oil palm industry, because I'm going to talk about the palm oil products. So palm oil, right? When you talk about palm oil, you're mostly thinking, it's in the oil, in the bottle. But actually, you're using palm oil products from the time you wake up in the morning until you go to bed, right? So this is the reality of it, and it's a very important commodity for Malaysia, for our economy. But many times, palm oil is highly misunderstood. It is constantly attacked and scrutinized, while there are a lot of facts that actually show contrary to the attacks, right? So which we will also see in the water footprint results that we have today. Now, palm oil also is one of the most productive oil crop. If you talk about to produce 1 ton of vegetable oil, the hectarage used by oil palm is only 0.26 as compared to the other, vegetable oils. This also shows very high yields productivity, and due to this, our environmental performance and our water footprint actually sometimes is so much better. But of course, I'm not going to show a comparison today, but this is just to give some awareness of why sometimes we have such results come out later, yeah? And this is just a very brief, introduction to the farmer supply chain. Starts in nursery, and where the seeds are transplanted in plantations, and the fresh fruit bunches are harvested and processed into crude palm oil at the mill, and then they are refined at the refinery, and then for further downstream applications in food, and then it's also transported, exported, right? So if you look at the uniqueness of palm oil is that one fruitlet actually produces two kinds of oil. One is crude palm oil, okay, and followed by crude palm kernel oil, which actually further down it is, becomes kernel oil and palm oil, yeah? The slide is not changing as fast as I would like it to be, so please bear with me. So look at the statistics. If we talk about Malaysia's position in the oils and fats world, last year we exported over 50 million tons of oil, the second largest exporter of oils and fats, and Malaysia actually has over 30% share of the global palm oil trade, and is the 5th largest producer of oils and fats, oils and fats. And if you talk about production across the oils and fats, palm oil would have the highest percentage, and it also is the highest exported, exported oil in the global market. Yeah? So now we can come back to the water footprint. Okay, so as we all know, water is one of our basic needs, right? Without water, we would fail to exist. So, but however, water is just not needed, for growing food. It's also needed for the industry. It's needed for every aspect of our life. So today, water scarcity is an important factor facing our planet along with climate change. Okay? And many regions, water scarcity happens because the demand exceeds the supply. So that is how this water footprint concept actually came into play. Yeah? And if you there's a delay in the slide, this one, yeah? So one of the things is that global warming actually is there, it's happening right now, and there's a belief that this is also why the global drying is continuing to happen. Now, the study, the results that I'm going to present today is for the system modeling from the nursery up to the refined palm oil. Even though we have actually water footprint studies for further other products or the chemical, we're not presenting here today this study, we just stop at RBD palm oil. Yeah? Now, this is where we talked about method. Here I would like to talk about the methods that's available that came up after 2014, where the ISO standards 14046 was created, where they actually say when you talk about water footprint, you have to talk about upward impact and not just the inventory, not just your consumption. Because why? Water is different and unique in every place, right? Your climate based on your rainfall, etc. So if I'm using 1,000 liters of water in Selangor, it will not be the same impact as using 1,000 liters of water in Africa, or in India, or in China. So this is very important. So when we are reporting water footprint, it has to be based on water availability. Like for example, this method, we talk about the remaining water. So if I was to just go a bit further into this, here it's very important to talk about water stress index, okay? And the slide is not coming, okay? Finally, okay. So the water stress index here, they actually talk about when a region has scarcity. So where does a region have scarcity? They say it measures scarcity, the amount of renewable fresh water that's available for each person each year. Now, if the amount of renewable water in the country goes below 1,700 meter cube per person, then that country is to be said experiencing water stress, and then they have the calculation for it, okay? And so how it is very important to see, so in 2009, Vista first came up with the water stress index mapping. Yeah, so you can see here that the lighter colors are where the water stress index is lower, yeah? And the darker the colors, the more the water stress is there. And Malaysia, okay, my circle is in the wrong place, but Malaysia, you can see we are on the lower end, right? So this is way back in 2009. And then we look at another water stress, water scarcity index in 2012. So again, you would see the Malaysian region is on the lower risk, right? Why? Because, okay, and then let's look at something, the latest that I could find was for 2021, you know, and this is, and it's, you can see that Malaysia still is falling under the 10% and below, lower, even though as climate change is happening, there may be an increase, but yet our water stress index is still lower. And why is it? Because, as we said, we have a high rainfall, right? Our rainfall is okay. So we have an average rainfall in Malaysia between 2,600 millimeter to 3,000 millimeter. But again, right, this will change, yeah, as climate change is happening. There could be an increase in rainfall, right? There could be, extreme floods as well. So this is the reason why our water stress index, or our Malaysian water stress index, is on the lower side. So based on that, right, if you do a water footprint as it is as per ISO 14046, it should be talking about the impact of the use of water, correct? Right? So let's look at for palm here. So this is for fresh fruit punch, okay? So the water footprint for the production of 1 ton FFB, and then suddenly we see the crop water use is not even coming up here. Why? Because in the plantations in Malaysia, irrigation is not done. It is actually rain-fed, okay? So if it's rain-fed, then somehow or other your blue water completely is not available there, right? But every time when we are reporting using Hoekstra, we are talking about high consumption. But now you can imagine you have a crop that is not using irrigation, but is using natural rainwater that is already in your soil, correct? So now if we go on, what came up was this. The use of fertilizers seemed to have a significant impact to the water footprint as well. But this is an indirect impact. This is what we say is for the production of fertilizer, maybe for the natural mining of it, the natural resources. That is what is actually contributing. So this is an indirect impact for the water footprint for the production of 1 ton fresh fruit punch at the plantation. Yeah? So if you go on to the next one, this is actually, if you see, it's a production of 1 ton crude palm oil at the palm oil mill. And just now we saw some figures as well, right? So those figures are your, what you say here, your inventory, right? Those who are doing LCA, you understand, that's your inventory, it's not your impact assessment. But we talk about water footprint, we need to talk about impact assessment. And then, surprisingly, again, you will see that the crop water use is not coming up as a high impact as compared to the water consumption in the mill for boiler, for the process itself that actually comes, that gives this impact, So that's the thing. So you can actually look at how this is going about. Yeah. Okay. So then, if you go on further down, you look at the for 1 ton of unready palm oil, and here you can see that all the impact is actually coming from the feedstock from upstream, right? So in this study, when we actually looked at it, the highest impact was coming from the palm oil mill, and very aptly, the reason was also from the carbon footprint study, the palm oil effluent was also giving that kind of same impact. The greenhouse gas emissions was higher as that. And so again, very clearly you could see the correlation between these two was where the if we do something for the reduction of palm oil effluent, the water footprint can be further improved because we are using natural water that's available in the plantation for your crop. So in that sense, right, if you, again, as I say, if you want to report water consumption, write it as water consumption and not footprint. But if you want to see water footprint, then it should come up to the impact because in the world uses footprint as impact. So when Malaysia starts to report very high figures, there's a very high possibility of miscommunication and wrong perceptions of actually what is the consumption of rice, 1 ton of 1 kilo of rice, what's the consumption, what's the water footprint. So it's very important that we keep up to what's going on in the global arena when we use terms like water footprint. So this is something that I would like to say. So in view of this, right, these are some of the things that we realize at POB. And if the slides do not change fast, I'm sorry, I'm taking away. So one of the highlights would be that we realize that crop water use does not actually have a high impact on the water footprint impact, as the oil palm trees are really fat here. But if we talk about oil palm trees in South Thailand, they cannot be just rainfed, they have to be irrigated. And so one of the, and it is dominant in the palm oil stage, water for boiler as well as some mills still do dilution. So this is one of the things that came up from this study, right? That is very, very important to actually curb or actually say which are the areas you can plant palm oil, what kind of rainfall you need to have, what kind of water renewable water that's available, what is your population in that area. So these are some of the studies, some of the findings that actually were translated into even up to policy level. So regions with high rainfall were seen for planting, suitable for planting palm oil, and in fact that's what we say, that when we Kedah and up north, it is not feasible if you want to think of the environmental impact, and even more now as we are going into what you call this with the global warming and climate change. So these findings were actually used for future planning, which actually one of the policies that came out, the AKN policy, where we had towards sustainable palm oil production, where we had the capping of the amount of area to plant palm oil in Malaysia, and plus I don't know, it's very slow about it. So to cap the total oil palm cultivation area to 6.5 million hectares, and and no more conversion of forests, and all this actually is based on studies that were done for palm oil, right? So there's no more planting on tree, etc. So what I would like to emphasize here is that when you're doing this going forward, if you want, because globally, if you can see, they will talk about water consumption, water use. So if you're talking those terms, it's very good to use those Oxtra figures where it actually shows you those kind of those kind of water consumption. But when you start using water footprint terminology, please ensure that you're talking up to the impact, that is, you're taking into consideration the water stress index, the water availability of the region, so that there's not so much of scrutiny on products. Yeah, like there are a lot of producers here, even could be paddy producers, could be oil palm producers that get the wrong kind of what you call targeted wrongly due to miscommunication. It's not wrong, but it's just maybe some miscommunication. Yeah. So I think I'm almost at the end of the month. Yeah. So we soon be having PPOP 2023 right here, 7 to 9. So those who are interested, I think it would be really good if you want to know more about the oil palm industry. Please drop by and come and join us. And with that, I think I'm finishing my talk, very fast. I would have been faster if the slides had gone faster. I'm sorry. Technology. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We can't drink dust, dirt, oil, or rust, but water, well, that's a must. I open the floor for any questions from the audience. Or Golden dah terlalu kuat ke macam mana? Okay, alright. With that, we are going to take a 10 minutes break, tea break, and we'll resume after that. Please come back latest by 3:55. Terima kasih, kita break 10 minit dulu ya. Untuk mayam dan mi goreng dah mati.
Uncle Dennis.
final session, the forum session, shortly at 4 p.m. Mungkin ada yang bertanya macam dapatkan slides. For those who are looking for the presentation slides, before the end of the event, they will publish or they will put the QR code on the screen. You can scan the QR code later for the presentation slides.
Taking music out.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we will continue with the final session, the forum session. The date was set. Right now, to spark more conversation on our team today on water footprint, we will now proceed with high-level panel discussion, moderated by Dr. Gary Sira, Advisor, Malaysia Greentech Corporation MGTC, and joining here as the panelists are Professor Ching Kim, Secretary General of Natural Resources, Environment and Climate Change, our beloved brother, Mr. Major Narendra Mayam, also called Narendra Boss, CEO of the Water Consortium, Sekitar, Professor Dr. Zulkifli Yusuf, Chair of the Visual Water and Water Footprint of the Water Sector Transformation of the Astro 2040, and Dr. Surina Ismail, Head of Sustainability, IOI Corporation. Please speak. Thank you. I believe that the two Supermen is nothing new to us. Then I will introduce a bit about Dr. Surina Ismail. Dr. Surina Ismail currently holds the position of Group Head of Sustainability, IOI Corporation. In this capacity, she is responsible for the corporate sustainability, which includes aligning the strategy and sustainability policies together with the implementation for the whole IOI group implementation and manufacturing divisions, and regulatory and sustainability matters. She has been involved in activities such as for the supply chain certification for RSPO Trade and Traceability Committee, as well as in the sub-working group in OLEO, Oil Derivatives, LCA, as well as REACH, GHS, etc. And about the moderator, a bit about the Gary Tessira from MGTC. Dr. Gary is a technical expert trainer at Malaysia Green Technology and Climate Change Corporation, MGTC. He has more than a decade of experience in climate change and sustainability policy development and negotiation at international and national levels. He was Deputy Undersecretary for Climate Change at the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment, formulated national climate policy, and negotiated on Malaysia's behalf of 14 UN Climate Conference COPs. Right, we'll continue with that. The ground is yours, Dr. Gary, please.
Terima kasih. Very good evening. And at the outset, I think let me ask you to give yourselves a big hand for remaining this late in the day to attend this talk. Please give yourselves a big hand. On behalf of pleasure to be able to be here. And in fact, if I were you, I would consider myself doubly blessed because it's extremely rare to be able to put together a panel of this level. We have Sir, here's you, Dr. Ching, here with us, together with some eminent speakers, some of whom you have heard from already. The idea, of course, being that although we are familiar with concepts like carbon footprint, we are still grappling with the idea of what water footprint could be. And thanks to some of our earlier speakers like Dr. Wijaya, we understand now that it's not the same as consumption. Right? And the idea really is that we need to set Malaysia up. Just before coming to this event, I was actually at a working lunch with the Energy Commission of Malaysia and the Environment Minister of Singapore. And very bluntly and very point blank, she said, Singapore needs water. We are a net importer of water, and we will need to get that water from Malaysia. Right? These are words directly from her mouth. So it's wonderful that all of you are here because you recognize this very important fact. And with that, we first lay out some ground rules. You are free to ask questions of the panel. At any time, we have 2 microphones set up on the floor for this purpose. Please feel free to use them. Right? So we'll get the panel started with a little bit of some reflections on some of the presentation that were made by Dr. Zulkifli Yusuf. Malaysia as a country that has such a bountiful amount of rainfall, more than 3 meters most of the time a year, can we meet all of our needs with this amount of rainfall? This rainfall that we currently receive. We're not talking about the future yet, we'll talk about the future later on. But at excess of 3 meters rainfall, being one of the top 10 countries in the world in terms of rainfall, can we meet all of Malaysia's needs from this amount?
Thank you, Dr. Gary. Theoretically, we have more than enough. Ranging from 2002 to 2005, 2006, I guess it's somewhat maybe close to 4,000. But the issue is that the availability, spatial availability is different. Some states, or some basin receive a lot of rainfall with low demand for water. But some basin receive relatively less rainfall, but the demand is very high. So basically the best way to address this is looking at the water stress at basin level. Like Muda, for example, the water stress is very high. Johor also very high, I think it's more than 40% water stress in that the amount of water consumed compared to the water availability in the runoff. And then certain part like Kuala Lumpur, Selangor, the demand is very high compared to the available resources in that particular area. Then we have to actually import water from under basin through interbasin interstate water transfer. That is one thing. So basically depending on the locality, depending on the demand, and depending on the local rainfall. Another thing is rainfall is also very temporary. Certain period of the year, certain area is dry, like in the East Coast, for example. We have constant rainfall start from November, December, January, February, and then stop. So basically, we have excess water during certain period of the year, but very minimum water during the rest of the year. So basically, a variation in terms of spatial and temporal should be taken into consideration. And with climate change, I think it's more scary because we can have both extreme in terms of water excess, flood, and also in terms of drought. We can expect projected longer drought and one can start in the future. So basically, depending where we live and when we need the water. Thanks.
Thank you. So it's clear that there are occasions in the country where some places will need more water than others. Of course, the natural biodiversity in this country has actually evolved is not a problem, at least unless changes occur too suddenly. But of course, we, with our own humans, with our own timing, our own preferences for certain locations, we will exceed the supply that can be naturally delivered at any point in time. We'll come back to that issue of how we plan to store water during periods when we do lack rainfall versus needing water year-round, as our civilizations often do. We'll come back to that. But in the meantime, I'd like to direct the next question to two other of our guests. The idea that if we were to adopt water consumption or water footprint printing exercise or some kind of framework, there is often pushback that sounds often like it's too difficult to do or it's too expensive to do, we don't have the necessary data, etc. So I'd like to direct this next question both to Mr. Narendran, CEO of the Water Consortium, as well as Dr. Serena, both of whom deal with challenges in businesses to supply of water issue. Perhaps starting, ladies first, Dr. Serena, in IOI Corporation as head of sustainability, is this really something that you see as an issue? Cost, availability of data, and perhaps capacity of not just large organizations like IOI, but SMEs as well, that form a key part of the supply chain to conduct these kinds of exercises.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to share our view as well and what we're going through in terms of water management. IOI is an agricultural-based company. We are oil palm, obviously, and also we have a manufacturing side, so it's vertically integrated. So to us, water is existential. So it's really important for us. So recently, when we introduced our Climate Change Action Initiative, we did a risk assessment on the climate impact. And one of the things that they looked at under physical risk assessment is water. Water stress in that sense. And the impact of heat as well in terms of what happens when you have climate. So for us, water and heat goes together. And as you know, with temperatures rising, like El Nino coming in, it does impact agriculture. It's true, we have green water, but we have also identified areas, as Prof. Zul had said earlier, some areas are more stressed than others. And some, for example, manufacturing. Our manufacturing facility in Johor, for example, will undergo water stress. So it's not about not about forced to do. It's more like we have to do it. If we don't, in the next few years, when the matters becomes more difficult to address, issues of water stress will impact our own production and our own manufacturing capability. So I think the question is not about doing it now or doing it later, is you have to do it. Somehow or other you have to do it. If you want to be sustainable as a business, you have to do it. It is very difficult, and I think this is a really great forum because we need to make sure that we work together with the government in terms of the policy, in terms of the incentives, to utilize technology to help us address issues of recycling water, circular economy, and I think this is where it's great that we have a panel here and the Secretary General is here. Of course, our Indang water person is here, so I think this is a great forum. I'm really happy.
Same question.
Thank you, Dr. Gary. Basically, for IGEM the National Sewerage Concession, we on the other side, we have a new source of water to reduce water footprint from existing resources. So we have about 7,500 plants that generate close to 6,000 milliliters per day, equivalent to almost 2,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools. That's a lot of water that can be reused for non-potable use. and it's a potential to reduce the water stress, water footprint. And some of the track record that we are embarking into is that we have one water recycling plant already. It's a joint venture with Asli, producing 4 million liters per day, selling to industry in Kosan Gabagaf. And we have recently signed a memorandum of understanding with 2 other water operators, PBA Pulau and also Syarikat Melaka, to look into the possibility of generating recycled water for industrial use. So it's a new potential and it's a great potential, I believe.
Yes, but the question is, how is that being tracked in terms of trying to paint a picture about the footprint of water? For example, I know it's not, it wouldn't be under your direct control, but for the water that is recycled that goes back into industry, how would you propose that the industry to use it, begin tracking that as sort of second water, recycled water, in terms of impact? Are there perhaps this is a question for Prof. Zul, but within the framework of calculating water footprints, how is the concept of recycled water handled and addressed?
Okay, maybe Professor Zul mentioned just now that the consumption is about 210 liters per capita per day, and that is based on freshwater resource. So the idea here is actually, because this includes industrial consumption. So if this is taken out from the industrial consumption, the liters per day per capita for domestic use will reduce drastically. So that's how we can then plan the future of our freshwater management.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that paints very clearly a picture of how we will handle the issue of recycled water.
Can I add that? Actually, we can calculate water footprint at individual level, premise level, factory, or the state, or the country. Maybe the recycled water is not helping to reduce the water consumption at factory level. But over the state, over the river basin, that will happen, because we recycle the water within the basin.
Thank you very much. We'll move to questions from the floor very shortly, but before we do, address one question to Dr. Chintu. We've heard so far about the post-consumer water use from Mr. Narendran. In terms of the anticipated need for potable water, given the fact that we have, as Prof. Zul has shown, a fairly large amount of non-revenue water, how are we in terms of the number, distribution of water treatment plants? Are they capable of supplying the potable water needs for the nation, or should we consider public use to move away from potable water for specific needs? For example, watering plants around the house, flushing of driveways, washing of cars, all of that does require potable water. Perhaps given the fact that land use change and all these other kinds of issues, energy consumption for the production of potable water, all of these will impact the energy footprint as well and carbon footprint. What are some of the plans perhaps to address some of these issues with respect to production of potable water? Dr. Ting?
Thank you, Dr. Gary. The easiest way now is to produce water distribute treatment plant, right? WTP we call it. To give you the example, the Langan treatment plant, they're taking water from Cloud Dam Park, right? The land area is close to 35 million square feet. It's a large area, right? And that's only the treatment plant. We're not counting yet the land footprint for the dam in Parang, the pipeline, the intake, right? The treatment capacity is 1130 mld. Right, it's a big plant, right? And this plant is to make sure you and I in KL, Selangor, will have enough water until the year 2030. Right? And if you to calculate into every 1 cubic meter of water produced from that plant requires 31.42 square foot of land. Big one, right? Okay, that's the issue. Not so much about water footprint, but it's land footprint I'm talking about, right? It's big, right? Okay. If you were to reduce this footprint, we need to do at least 3 things. Especially one thing is we have to reduce our per liter consumption, right? Number one, right? Can we taking a shower only for 5 minutes? Possible, right? Number 2, reduce the water loss, the leak that we have in the pipelines, right? And just for your information, the amount of water leaks, if you were to cut it into dollar and cent dollars, is about 2 billion a year. Big, right? Amount can supply a combined Melaka, Kelantan, Malaysia. Big amount, right? And the third one is, of course, is very difficult to change our behavior, right? That if you, today, if you go back to your house, if you spot a water leak pipe just roadside, please stop and take a photo and send to Islam. That's what we can do. We need that kind of, right? That's important, right? And the message that I would like to drive is that maybe we can have my last slide. This one slide is just one slide, right? That we must address the fundamental issue is about water rates and tariff, right? And I'm not sure, I live in a house of 4. My water rate is less than 10 ringgit. Cooking, bathing, everything, right? Not only how much we use water rate per month. I don't know, right? You see, right? And how much is your gateway bill? Maybe 400 ringgit a month. Right? Right? So we want to address this issue, right? And we have raised the tariff for the non-domestic sector in August. Very minimal, I would say. And if you do the same for the domestic sector, and you and I will be affected. Very minimal, I would say. Then I need your support to push through this big agenda. To make sure that one day you have continuous flow of water to your house 24/7, 365 days a year. That's our one. And the other thing is that on the water quality, if you were to go to the SPAN report, we have stated that fail all 5 parameters as per water quality. That one day we at the ministry, our goal is that one day we could drink water right from the tap. That's our ultimate goal. Chairman SPAN is here, right? And on the water footprint, maybe I would like to suggest maybe SPAN, we should think about that concept, right? And perhaps making that one of the conditions to the water operators, they must publish water footprint in their report, just for the start. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sutu. I see some applause out there. Yes, certainly you can applaud anytime. It's not an issue. Yeah, I think the consensus is that we Malaysians are so well endowed in terms of water, we take it for granted. And although many of us might hesitate, we do, deep down, we are aware that we are paying too little for the water that we use. And many of us would actually willingly pay more to ensure that our water supply is up to snuff in terms of quality, and then also it's enough to meet our needs on a quantitative basis as well. Yes. So with that, I'd like to open the questions of floor. The floor is once again always open for questions. It's a very rare opportunity to direct questions to members in the private sector, to academia, as well as to the Secretary General, our new Secretary General of the Ministry, NRECC. Yes, sir, question please. Kindly state your name and your affiliation.
Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Gary. I'm Abdullah from Mineral and Geoscience Department. So I noticed that, all the panels talk about the climate change and the water stress. And my question is, if we look at the water transformation sector 2040, so one of our alternative is groundwater, to use groundwater, especially in the in the industry or in the agriculture, which is two sectors which is have the very high in terms of the water footprint. So what is comment from any panels about the water footprint for the groundwater in near future, especially if we want to combat our climate change and so on. Thank you very much.
Okay. Maybe we can start with Prof. Zul on that.
I don't know whether I can answer that directly or not, water footprint for groundwater. But I agree with you that maybe it's time for us to consider groundwater as alternative resources. The concept of conjunctive use of water, surface water and groundwater, especially when we're dealing with drought. Because the supply from groundwater ecosystem is not affected by drought. It basically can ensure that the supply is sufficient when there is not enough flow from surface water. But the issue is, do we know exactly the groundwater potential for the entire country? I think that's the first exercise. We have to have a detailed mapping of the groundwater potential. Maybe some state already done it. The second issue is, because the cost compared to surface water is maybe slightly more expensive for groundwater pumping and all that. Then maybe the water company still have option whether to explore surface water fully. Then when the surface water is almost depleted, switch to groundwater. But we have to have a strong policy that force the water company to have, not the water company, the government maybe have a policy that 30% of the supply must come from groundwater in order to avoid possibility of a water shortage during dry period. If that policy is enforced, maybe the water company, state government will have to abide to that policy. I think I can answer on that content, but as far as water footprint for groundwater, I'm not very sure. I cannot answer that, but I think the need to have groundwater as alternative, or we manage conjunctive way, that is, I think, very necessary in order to make sure that we have enough water even during dry or prolonged drought. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Maybe I just want to give maybe some of so-called policy direction of the ministry, right? But not about water footprint. On groundwater, we just heard just now we have rainfall average about 3,000 mm a year, right? But the question is how we want to make sure that we could capture every drop of rains. That what we are doing now, one, we are building more off-river storage. We are looking at is a few big RS in Kelantan that will cost us $500 million already approved under RP3. The other one will be in the Rasau. Rasau is quite unique. It has both functions, flood mitigation and water supply, at a cost close to 2 billion ringgit. This will be the future direction of the ministry. No longer building a single purpose infrastructure, at least for purpose. And just to touch a bit on groundwater, we have also embarked on what I could say the first underground dam in Langkawi, UGT. Thank Narim for the extensive study on that. BBA will be the one that championing the projects, one of its kind in Malaysia. We are looking what will be the best technologies for that, whether it will be a glass wall technology or concrete wall. We haven't decided on it yet, but that already in the pipeline. Just to share.
Excellent. This is all very new information to me. We are at the cutting edge of receiving this policy decision directly from the ministry. So very grateful. Excellent question, by the way. And to add to just a few of that, there are considerations before we do move into groundwater, particularly with respect to land subsidence. If it's in coastal areas, you have to worry about land subsidence. The other thing you have to worry about is seawater intrusion. If we take away, remove the head of groundwater, then we open the door to saltwater abuse. So a number of countries in the world already made those mistakes. We should probably try and learn from them and not look for. But in other parts that are not exposed to these perils, certainly the idea of underground dams is very novel, very unique, as well as off-river storage. All of these things are clearly solutions. Any other questions from the floor for our distinguished panel? Yes, please go ahead. Your name and affiliation, please.
Good afternoon. Thank you, panelists, for the information on this item. Okay, my question, I'm Marian, I'm from the Ministry of Works. So my question is how to make water footprint to be given the same priority as carbon footprint. The reason of my question is because coming from the Ministry of Works, we are doing a lot of road works, and from the insights given by the presentation by Professor Zul just now, it shows the various sectors that it touches, such as agriculture, and for the infrastructure, I can see that there's a lot of water elements here, and it is important and crucial because it could be detrimental, in fact, for the impact of climate change and things like that. So I think this is pertinent, and I would like to know how are we going to move forward with this. Thank you.
Would you address your question to Dr. K.S.
Okay, I believe that I think it's interrelated. So as long as I have some directive or some insights from panelists. Thank you.
I think that is why I think this very pilot program is conducted actually to raise the very first step of awareness among the policymakers. That is why Malaysia is actually quite basic, explained quite detailed, so that we can have some basic understanding on water footprint. Then ASM already started the work, already have some work plan. And maybe we are very fortunate to have new KSU. They are very fond of water. So we are very fond with water. So I think hopefully with this we can see brighter prospect for water footprint.
Maybe I can add something to hear. Please. Just to share with you all the large centralized plants that we have built by the government. We have rain harvesting facilities, and the toiletry system we use on effluent and also rain water harvester. So these are some baby steps that engineers have come forward with the design of our wastewater treatment plant. As a company, we actually use about close to 35 millimeters per year of our treated effluent for internal cleaning and so on. So those are some of the, maybe I would suggest that should be included in the building bylaw in the future design of buildings and infrastructure.
Thank you. I would like to add anything. Any other questions? Thank you very much for the questions from the floor. Already very rich. Yes, sir, please.
Thank you very much, Astro from the ID. I just want to pinpoint some situation about the shared river basin, especially in Muda. I do agree, which has been mentioned by our KSU. Yeah, we do have about 494 BCM, billion cubic meter from our river flow in the year. And our total demand for the whole total entire Malaysia is about only, I think, about 20 BCM. It's only less than 5% from our total demand of the river flow. But now, we heard that there's some issues being keep going on till now, especially for Sungai Muda, between Kedah and Penang. So, what's the action plan from the ministry or from other state levels, something like that, to solve this kind of problem? Because I heard that Penang has studied a lot of the water source in their river basin, the shared river basin. But again, the issue still remains out now. So, what's the next action plan? If there's some this kind of station may occur from other river basin as well. As you know, there's Sungai Johor. I think there's problem has been settled because of the has been be solved by the Seri River inflow to the Sungai Dua, will be okay. While the Sungai Dua, there will be a barrage to settle down for the monthly requirement. So how about their modal basin? Thank you very much.
So granted that we have land and water and state issues and energy and federal issues and things like that. But Dr. Fu, would you care to explain to me?
Yeah, I am very cautious about answering this question. It touches on the state power, and you mentioned about Kedah State is my home state actually. Yes, 80% of the water supply of Penang is depending on Kedah Muda River. That flows from the Muda Forest Reserve down to the sea, right? The idea that we mooted and has been there until today is to have a river basin authority, Hulu Muda River Basin Authority. We have had many workshops on that, right? But the only thing that we ought to recognize is that the state right on water resources. That's the only problem that we have. And that's on the Muda River, right? And we have even, our team even went to Australia to study Maradali River Basin Authority, right? And just to share, in order to get these 5 states, in order to agree to that authority, there is a lot of carrot. There is investment promised by the federal government on that. I'm not sure whether we could adopt that model for the Muda River Basin Authority, right? Yet that is still work in progress, I would say. Maybe I would add another one, which is the between Perak and Penang, our Sungai Perak, the catchment, right? This has been going on since, I think, the year 2010. We have not had a concrete solution yet. But that involves also the water from Perak to Penang State. The problem is that they have a problem of getting the same business model for them, between raw water and distilled water. Right? And that again is an issue that we ought to settle. But we think that water resources ought to be shared between neighboring states. Sungai Muar River Basin is shared by 4 states: Pahang, Negeri Sembilan, Johor, and Melaka. That model is already there. But again, this is issue that beyond you and me, I would say, involve governance, infrastructure, policy matters that ought to be solved at a higher level. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So yes, even difficult questions, panel ni sanggup at least to give it a shot. Once again, we are limited. Please go ahead.
Doctor, we would like to take advantage of this crisis, whereby we are talking to Penang government to tell them that why don't we look into our source of repeated effort. There's potential of 150 ml from this.
Yes. So once again, there are some solutions out there that can be at least a partial remedy, and the rest will actually have to come down to, I would say, fair and honest negotiations between all the parties concerned. It just so happens that my home state actually began. So kita yang guna banyak air. But when I was growing up in Penang, we got water from Aitam Dam, and we drank straight from the dam. It was the best tasting water, soft, very soft water, granite, haze, rock. So I don't know if others of you have the same youth where you grew up being able to drink iron juice from the beginning, but it would be very nice to be able to go back there again. Any other questions for our distinguished panelists this evening? Yes, please. Silakan. Akan ambil kesempatan ni. We don't have this panel.
My name is Jayan. I'm a quantity surveyor. I call myself a water QS because I've been involved with the water projects. Every time I send my car for car wash, somehow I feel that what are the waste using treated water suitable for domestic use and you wash cars. So if we can measure the total volume of water used to wash cars, it could be millions of liters. So if perhaps the local government would enforce use rainwater instead of treated domestic water, probably they can save a bit of water use.
Terima kasih. Thank you very much for that view, shared view. That wasn't a question really, but if any additional comments, I agree. I think that using potable water to flush toilets should be a sin. Okay, I mean we're just diluting polluted water with, so we're creating more polluted water, only slightly diluted, right out of potable water. So to me that is some. Can you share some light?
We are taking some baby steps. Our Jabatan Perkhidmatan Perhubungan together with us looking into the possibility of having car wash in Pantai Galang Sewage Treatment Plant. So that's a project that both parties, JPP and IGEM, will be looking into. So these are baby steps that maybe will create awareness moving forward.
Yes, and I think it might also remove some of the stigma associated with recycled water as well. If you can offer that car wash service, I certainly would subscribe to that. Okay. Any other questions? So far, very strong participation. Please.
Thank you, Dr. Gary, Yang Bahagia Dr. KSU, and panelists. My name is Safari from NRECC. From the presentation by Professor Zul, he speak a lot on the off-the storage. I heard earlier of the storage, and Dr. KSU also speak on underground dam. And I would like to know the vision of country perhaps on the coastal reservoir. Yeah, we heard Prof. Zul in other avenue who presented to us on coastal reservoir in the other avenue. But you know, as the river water flows to the estuaries, yeah, it goes to the coastal area. Yeah, how? I mean, do we catch this water before they dilute with the seawater? And the vision, perhaps now will be given a mandate to study further or thorough into this coastal reservoir. Thank you, Dr. KSU.
The concerns, concept, and the implications of coastal reservoirs. Perhaps, Prof, would you like to begin?
I tried to answer. Actually, we conducted one integrated river basin model course last week in Perubahan. In that course, we have this role play game. So the issues is one of the model is to debate on the coastal reservoir. Coincidentally. In fact, we learned a lot from the stakeholders, from Bakas, from various other agencies. Maybe the nearest example that you can see coastal reservoir is Marina Baras. That is the successful story, even though in the beginning they have difficulty also. But when you look at the stakeholder, Marina Baras basically the stakeholder all is basically employee of company or government, something like that. No farmers, no fishermen. So in that sense, maybe the ecological effect is not that important compared to Sungai Johor. But we have discussed on Sungai Johor. I don't know whether my argument is right or not. This is based on what they did. They have few scenarios. One is that the agreement with Singapore will end 2061. So if we can wait another 40 years, we will have 1 million gallon per day. So there is a lot of water. And the stakeholder is so diverse. We have fishermen, we have ecotourism, we have aquaculture, and the area is also very flat, and possibly the risk flood is very high also. So basically when they consider everything, they feel that possibly it's better to wait for the 2061 agreement, and then we decide whether the water is to be fully used by Johorian or still continue the agreement. And also we have also as mentioned by one of the, by Dr. Zuharu. No. Astro, kawan rapat saya, tapi saya dah tunggu dia kena lupa nama orang. We have option from Sedeli, rotate dan sebagainya, itu long term option lah. Maybe in terms of social and environmental cost, there is less damaging compared to have coastal reservoir just measure. So basically, it's a new attempt. Maybe the concept is good, we can have the bigger cash, but when we compare definitely Singapore, Perdana Barat and Johor, maybe the unseen impact will be very big. And that is, maybe I don't know whether this is true or not, but that is the concern from the participant with that integrated water services management.
I just want to add a little bit, because we have manufacturing facilities in Johor. We have manufacturing facilities in Johor, and the issue now is that we know in the coming years we will have water shortage already. Yes. So we have been instituting a lot of technology to, for example, we have palm oil refinery effluent that we actually recycle back. But again, this is something that we would like the government to also look into, and maybe because manufacturing is our GDP, so it will be good if we get the policies that would encourage not only ours, because we report to in a global rating agencies, and that's how they we are incentivized to reduce, because when you reduce your water usage, your water intensity reduces, then it is a plus for us as a company. But small, medium companies might not have that kind of awareness. So I think this is where government policy is important, because we have supply chain. So our dependence is on that supply chain, the small, medium companies who do not necessarily have the kind of water stewardship. So if the government has a policy that encourages that, but also to make sure that there is a water for us to even use, because Johor is manufacturing area, and maybe we should renegotiate our water policy. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't talk about the 1962 agreement with Singapore. PM is going to Singapore very soon to talk about that again. I think Johor, later you can ask my colleagues sitting next to the chairman of SPAN, right? We have plans for Johor, don't worry about that, right? Our target is that maybe by the year 2030, Johor will have a zero dependency program, both treated water and water source, right? And we have planned, whether in the form of giving them a direct grant or a loan from DAB, to make sure that they don't depend on water from Singapore anymore. Even though it's not much, about 5 is MGD, but they are making close to 20 MGD. By 2030, Johor will be dependent on water from Singapore. If our plans work as we plan, what we plan, right? And if you want to know more about water with Singapore, I would encourage you to read this book. This book, right? Okay. Everything's in this book, and this book will be launched tomorrow by our Deputy Minister at our booth there, and you could purchase this book online as well. Tak mahal pun, RM2 sahaja. Okay? I think it's not useful for the book of it. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I'm really gratified to hear, very glad to hear that a lot of serious thought is going into this. As we know, off-river water storage is one thing because you are limiting the impact on the natural ecosystems. But once you approach the estuaries, particularly in a country like Malaysia, you are moving, if I can take off my moderator hat and put on an NGO hat for a minute, that you are entering an area which is very sensitive in terms of biodiversity. If you look at our mangrove forest, the structure of the forest, the level of salinity tolerance for each species as you move inward, and the salt water coming in with the tides and then the water moving out. Every barrage in history increases or decreases the salinity upstream and will impact the biodiversity there, plant life, trees there, and then downstream the salinity will obviously increase. So instead of getting a well-structured biome with gradually increasing salinity, things that cultivate on fireflies and some kind of similar attractions, snails, of course, with their food, you create a sharp break in the ecosystem and you actually result in a loss in that diversity. So I'm very glad a lot of careful thought is going into this before we actually consider making such a big decision. So excellent questions. Any other questions or views for our distinguished panelists this evening? Yes, please. I must say that you are a very good audience because I've been at some other panel discussions and the response is not very strong, but I must admit that maybe it's because water is such an important commodity. Please go ahead.
Good evening, respected Minister in charge from government and the panelists. I'm Ramani Bai from UCSA University. I have only one suggestion, maybe a broad view, a broad sense actually. Just now we heard from DIG for Selangor. We are using only 5% of the water that is available in the river, right? And on the other hand, we have scarcity in Johor. Can we think of, it may be a long-term plan, can we think of linking of rivers, interlinking rivers, instead of storing water at one place in Johor? Again, we are end up with pollution problem, contamination problem. Can we think of linking rivers? Because geographically, Malaysia is possible to have a interlinking rivers between states with proper agreement and SOPs and so on. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the question.
Oh, I think there are, maybe the term should be water supply grid, rather than linking the river. Because I don't know whether there is any, except if you have to transport water from Kelau to Selangor, that is through tunnel. But river basin has its own catchment, basically. And normally you transport water, it's only possible at the downstream, but not likely in the upstream because the trade and all that would actually difficult for linking. But what we can do actually just like water supply grid. If the supply at point A is not sufficient, you can divert that from other source to the supply possibly can be, but not in terms of linking river from different state or different basin, because a lot besides that, I think that would disrupt a lot of ecological balance, cutting of hill and all that. So maybe again the impact will be quite tremendous.
Any other views?
It's going to be very, very, so first and foremost, it will impact land use change, biodiversity, it will impact owners of lands. It's not a doable thing, and as a company who has estates, if it goes anywhere close to ours, it's going to be a problem. And if we have a set aside for forest conservation, we will not be able to allow that to happen. So it's a lot more complicated. Even if you want to divert just a little bit of stream within our plantation, for example, we need permission to do that, because that would affect the biodiversity upstream or downstream. We call it the high conservation value effect. ACV 4, 5, and 6. That's the issue that we will look into. So I don't think that's a possibility.
Maybe it's a quick response. Right? The concept of water grid, of water highway, right, has been hotly debated, I would say. And we at University, we always keep abreast of this kind of development. And there is some discussion going on at the Ministry. I think I would say promoting is raw water grid, right? And I think because I think it's quite risky to depend on a single water source. The building of a Russell ORS is to have the second source for slumlords actually. Then you can make sure that the Sungai catchment is serving this part of area. Russell is serving PJ and Klang area, right? Risky to have one single source, right? And if you want to propose a water grid, then you have to think of who will operate the grid. Still is involved water resources. Whether you are proposing states, all states have a same equity in that SPV, and the rest just tap to grid for raw water. That is still very much at that conceptual level, I would say. You can sit down and discuss on that. Thank you.
Thank you. I know that we are approaching 5 minutes to 5, so time is getting a bit short. I do want to give some time to our panelists to provide some closing remarks. So can we have the last question from the floor? Yes, please. Oh, go ahead.
Hi, I'm a student.
Actually, the organizer tadi soalan.
I'm just wondering, because our ESG reporting has included water as part of it. I'm just wondering how we get the private sector. I will have no problem with doing all this reporting. The SMEs on board with how we soft land all these ideas, and also a quick, what kind of strategy is needed for government to be included. So because environment is now part of the NRECC for the ESG.
Thank you, Nazmi.
Okay, so we report water management or water stewardship. Instead, in fact, we have. I just published our annual sustainability report. And I wanted to be, I'm very happy to note that actually in terms of water intensity for the plantation, we actually reduce, and that's because of at the mill level, we have introduced new technology to use less water for the steaming of our fresh fruit bunches. So that's one of the ways in which we do it. We report it because it's a requirement by a CDP, by agencies, reporting agencies. I think one of the ways in which we can first move that for the manufacturing sector or for the public private sector is through bersempena. The public listed companies, for example, under ESG, they have started to look, of course they have introduced the climate part, but I think it will be an important part to also put water as part of the requirement. So in order for us to encourage first the public listed, and then create an awareness for the small, medium industry, because they are the ones that really, really need a lot of help. I think this is where the government can have a helping hand to mainstream water as part, water management as part of a requirement in terms of manufacturing. To give you an example that's really, really good, in the palm oil industry, one of the reasons why greenhouse gas emission from the methane that has been released from the mills is being measured and also identified as very, very important. And the MPOB, actually, the Malaysian Palm Oil Board, actually mandated that mills with a specific tonnage is required to have a methane capture. And this is government, Malaysian Palm Oil. So maybe for water, it should be the same thing, So in other words, for refining, we have a palm oil refining effluent. that you should utilize. So maybe there's something else that you can put that as a requirement, that if you have a certain tonnage, put that as a requirement to put in. But of course you have incentives. That's really important. I think the smaller mills actually have that kind of incentives in the farm. So I think it must be a carrot and stick kind of thing. You cannot just push. And let me say one thing about all these dams and all this. It is actually also counterproductive because you affect biodiversity. And biodiversity is required in terms of taking care of your coastline, taking care of erosion, which is one of the issues that a lot of countries is facing because they deplete it in the name of hydroelectric power, in the name of dams for water. These are the things that we would like to make sure that the government also looks at it, because this is a requirement by our investors that we take care of it. So I'm very much concerned about all these things as well. Thank you.
Right, yeah, so CDP is the carbon disclosure project. But yeah, essentially completely true. When we build dams, we do deplete the tailwater of the sediment, and that sediment often is the only source of growing our mangroves. For example, mangroves try to catch that sediment, so last-ditch attempt to save the fertile topsoil that is being washed down to sea with greater intensity with climate change and greater intensity rainfalls. All right, if there are no further questions from the floor, perhaps I can run through each of the members of the panel for some closing remarks. Perhaps if you can tie the concept of footprinting our water. I think you mentioned Bursa. Bursa is part of JC3, of course, together with the Securities Commission and Central Bank. Part of the data catalog that they're putting together now is going to also include water use. So I think this is a very, very strong development, very good development, recognition by Central Bank of the importance of water. In fact, we hear from our panelists, beginning with Professor, perhaps some closing remarks in terms of how you see the footprinting of water lining up with net zero aspirations for the country, not just net zero energy or emissions, but any kind of waste, together with perhaps a link to how we can strengthen the implementation of circular economy in Malaysia.
Oh, this is tough. Okay. But I would like to link, maybe the easiest way to link with water footprint and water management is to link it directly with demand management approach. When we have strong demand management, masuklah mandi 3 minit, tapi saya tak nak mandi 3 minit, saya mandi lebih tapi turn off the tap. I don't want to stress. 3 minutes itu stressing. Kita tutup air, sama aja. So basically, link to demand management. So that will basically answer the circular economy answer, because by demand management basically is two aspects. One is use the technology, saving device technology, and then demand satu lagi related to behavior. So we have to stress these two, changing the behavior so that we have more wise approach to using the water, and the other one is increase the technology so that we use less water, but use water effectively. By supporting the demand management, automatically that support also in getting lower water footprint for various products.
Thank you. Mr. Narendra?
In relation to water stress, which is related to global climate change, part of the efforts that the company is doing is to reduce greenhouse gas emission, and we have embarked into the production of fertilizer. We have our homemade fertilizer. We're producing 5 tons per day. Lab studies have shown very positive results. So we have public listed companies coming forward to take the samples, and they're very happy, and we want to go big in this, because whatever we do in relation to reduce greenhouse gas emission has direct effect to the availability of fresh water. With regards to generating gas, methane gas, we have plants that have started generating methane gas to produce electricity from the gas engine. Now, what we have done more than this large coupled with food waste has given us drastic increase in the production of methane gas. So this is also managing food waste, which pollutes the environment. So these are the three things that we can embark into fulfilling circular economy initiative.
Okay.
I think the message is clear that we at the Ministry working together with Fund, we will take this water footprint into our own agenda. And we will discuss today at this level. And I think on the water sector overall, reduce water footprint would means reduce energy consumption, reduce CO2 emissions, and it's better for all. Right? And last point is that I would like to say that we have to look the water in the totality. Water source, supply and services, and water, wastewater. It goes in a cycle. And if you don't look after water supply and look the river, the same water that we drink every day, I would say. It works a cycle. Thank you.
So we are manufacturing, we are agriculture. So to us, water is as existential as climate is. So I think we are very much into circular economy because it makes sense. It is actually efficient. It actually will get better for our bottom line. The point is, how do we make sure that other compatriots do the same thing? Because it is a long term, and every time we talk to the SMEs, the first thing they say is, we are there to survive. So I think the bigger companies generally have a stronger understanding of the importance of water stewardship. But I think the smaller companies, which in Malaysia contributes to about 40%, that is at least on the palm sector, 40% of them are small players, small medium players, and they're the one who actually needs a lot of helping hand and a lot of policies to push them forward. So mainstreaming the concept of water stewardship is actually very important. I think this is where we will look into the government to help, because when, as I mentioned, we have a supply chain. In climate, we have supply chain scope 3, which is the supply chain that needs to be addressed, and the same with water as well. Because the way the market is looking at us is, if you do not address the problem of biodiversity, water, climate, this is not going to be good as a company, because we are an exporting nation, a trading nation. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think all of you would agree with me that our panel has been very, very open and very transparent in answering all of your questions. So please give them a very big round of applause. Thank you so very much. Thank you all so very, very much for your participation today. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. A wonderful audience. Have a very pleasant evening. And do come to IGEM again tomorrow. See you.
Right, thank you, Dr. Gary and the rest for the wonderful discussion. Guys, it's time to care before the water is rare. As an appreciation to all our speakers today, we'd like to invite the Ambassador of the King, Secretary General of the Ministry of Natural Resources, Environment and Climate Change, Head of